You're listening to Business Stories with Ryan Arcaracci, where I speak to business professionals from all walks of life. Thanks for listening, and let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Business Stories podcast. And it is the end of the year. It is a time when we think about the new year. We think about all the things we can do. We think about the things we can change, how we can improve. And I'm excited because I bring a lot of people on who are business coaches, business consultants, franchise consultants, and these people help everyone listening figure out how to transition out of a career and maybe look into business ownership. And maybe if you're listening, you're thinking about that. And what's great about people that I talk to that do this type of work is that they've done it themselves. They've come from a job or a corporate career, and they've transitioned into becoming business owners themselves. So they have the experience firsthand. And that is true of my guest today, Kim Gillette with the Entrepreneur Source. She has a rich history in education, and now she's a business owner. So she's here to talk about her own story and how she's influencing others with looking into business ownership. So Kim, thank you for being here. Happy holidays to you. And I'm excited to learn about your background and what made you decide to become a business coach in your career. Tell us about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for
Yeah.
letting me be here. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. So let's talk about
All
a
right.
little bit about your
Yeah.
background there.
So
Yeah.
was that a question in there?
I tried to make it a question. Yes.
Yeah, let's talk. So let's talk about the background.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, so as with many of your other guests that have been here, we've all had extensive backgrounds before, or most of us have had extensive backgrounds before moving into this space here. I'm no different. The difference might be that I came from higher education. So I worked for 26 years in international education. I I was one of those when I went off to college, and it's like I needed to find my calling, my thing. What was the thing that excited me, got me going? Like where should I be? Right. So I did What Color Is Your Parachute, all of that good stuff. Found my way into higher education, specifically working with international students, international scholars, study abroad, getting our students overseas, and really felt that was my calling. That was my passion. That's where I wanted to be. That was going to be where I was going to retire from.
Okay.
That was no doubt in my mind. And then, and then
And
life
then,
happened.
yeah.
And then I hit the midlife crisis. I hit the subtle changes that happen in whatever industry you might be in, where what is important to you and how you operate may not always line up anymore with where you're at, and was feeling frustrated and got to the point where I was getting burnt out. I will say that I was burnt out.
Yeah.
And then add getting into burnout at the same time as COVID hits. And
Yeah.
when you've got students that are all over the world that you're trying to figure out where they need to be, that was really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say I got my students where they needed to go, whether that was coming back home to the US or getting back home to their home countries or figuring out where they could be in the US as campuses were shutting down. And then, about a year. So in late 2021, I was given my non-renewal letter, which
Hmm.
is higher ed speak for you're let go
Yeah.
without cause. Here you go. And I've never had that happen before. I was at my wit's end. I was down in the dumps. I didn't know where to go, but it gave me a chance to pause and think about where I was, where I wanted to be, what was important to me. Was that still the same space that I should be in, or was it time for something different? And that's where I took the leap of faith on myself and did something different. But
Yeah.
I don't regret at all the career that I had before. I loved it. And I tell my clients now the best thing about that is what I do now is taking the best of what I did there, which was helping people and working with people individually and helping them figure out that next thing and getting them the support and the resources and helping them just identify what that looks like.
Yeah.
So,
Walk
yeah.
us through like your decision making at that time. Obviously, it was an emotional time. You're like, well, what do I do? How did you talk yourself
Yeah.
through that?
That's a great question. And not that I wish anybody to go through that experience that I had, but I will tell you, having that experience has given me a lot of empathy and compassion for anybody who's going through that.
Yeah.
And because I was already burnt out, I was already dealing with, and you'll get some of that. So, little side note, I do have a book and we'll talk about that in a minute, but
Right.
you'll get
Yeah.
some of the story in that book
Yeah.
where the anxiety came up and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I was completely at sea and but taking advantage of any type of resource that came across my desk or came into my life. So whether
Mhm.
that was friends, colleagues that can only help you to a certain degree, but taking advantage of any type of employee assistance program that might be out there and available, getting in touch with counselors, therapists, my own doctor,
Mhm.
all of that, and then actually having in fact, with my therapist, we were talking about our counselor, we were talking about what it is they do, and I thought I like this idea. I like this idea of helping somebody. How do I get into that? But as we were talking further, I realized, ooh, I don't want that extra education. I don't want to have to keep notes and
Mhm.
deal with people's like emotional baggage, like going into the in the back and like trying to heal any kind of trauma or anything like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to look at present and work forward. And um, so help having different people outside of my family to talk things through was really helpful. I also had a coach who was helping me explore business ownership. And I know when I started that, I thought, no way. There's no way I'm going to do that. I don't have the wherewithal to do that.
Yeah.
But here I am today doing
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 it.
just that.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of people. It was not something I did by myself. There was a whole slew of people that were with me to help me through that and just help and support me and help give me that space to think about it and think about what else is there
Yeah.
and help me believe in myself
Yeah.
and encourage me to take a leap of faith.
Right. Sorry about that. For those listening, my cat just walked across the screen.
I was just going to say for those
Uh,
listening,
yeah.
yep,
Sorry.
there's a black cat that just walked across
Yeah.
the screen. It was really
Sorry.
fun.
No. No, this is great. This is great input. Sorry that my cat did that. But anyway,
No, that's
he's
great.
very impolite. So
Had to
when you
be in on
talk
it.
when you talk about coaching others, right? And you apply
Mhm.
the same knowledge you gained through that experience to them, right?
Right.
What do you advise people listening who are at a point where they're at a brick wall with their career, they're not happy where they're at, or like unfortunately, maybe they were let go or something happened,
Yeah.
and now they're at that point where, like you said, they're just kind of like lost at sea. Like, what do I do now? It's a huge burden to
Mhm.
bear because you've got your family, you've got pressure with
Yeah.
finances, family, lifestyle, maintaining everything, and trying to navigate where to go next, right? So, how,
Definitely.
what do you do to guide people through that wild ride
Right.
right there?
So, like, right. So, first of all, know that you are not alone.
Yeah,
There are resources out there, and so be open minded for the people that might be coming in front of you at that time.
right.
One of the so one of the things, like, just when I got a phone call, hey, do you want to talk to this person? I'm like, what the heck? Why not? I've got nothing to lose,
Yeah,
right? I don't have to make a decision. And in those of us that are working with Entrepreneur Source, I know we that is our mentality. It's not, we're not there to try to sell you anything.
yeah,
We're there to help you. And if it's the right, and if you just say, you know what, I'm willing to take that. What's a conversation, right? Let's have a
right.
conversation. Let's see where this is. And keeping an open mind. And I love to say that I'm a hope dealer and a dream champion. So one, hopefully offering hope that there's something else out there beyond that brick wall. Or if you are in adrift in that sea with the storm pummeling down,
Yeah.
that maybe I've got a life raft that you can hold on to for a little bit,
Right.
to help you get your strength back.
Yeah.
And take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take advantage of the resources out there. That's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for. That's my philosophy. Is I really want to provide support, especially having been in that situation and knowing what a lifeline that is, to have somebody else that's kind of helping you get out of the space you're in and being able to think at a higher level. So
Hmm.
oftentimes if you've been let go or you're at that brick wall, you can feel like the world's coming in on you. You can be kind of stuck, not to get too much into neuroscience, but you can be kind of stuck in your thinking and
Hmm.
in getting too much in the emotional flight or freeze, whatever that one
Yeah.
is,
Fight or flight.
flight or freeze
Yeah.
um, space,
Right.
and being stuck in that space and not being able to think rationally.
Yep.
And so having somebody like me come in can help you maybe get unstuck and help you get into that executive function part of your brain where you're able to think a little bit more rationally about
Yeah.
what's going on and coming up with a path forward.
I want to ask you too, like, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I think when people look at business ownership, there's always noise or people in the background saying, well, you're not going to be able to do that, or it's going to cost too much money. Or there's all these negative narratives going on out there. And really, I think it deters people. What do you
Yep.
think are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to that? And what kind of answer do you give when people face
First
those?
of all, First of all, I love the fact that you said a lot of noise out there,
Yeah.
because that is the title of my book, Rising Above the
Right.
Noise.
Right. I didn't mean to do that, but
and
I did.
that's
Okay, good.
and that is exactly what. So in the book it talks about the noise, the things that hold us back or the things
Right.
that hold us down. So either it could be dragging you down, like purposely pulling you down, or it could just be holding you so that you can't fly, that you
Yeah.
can't be what you're supposed to be. And that happens when you're looking at business ownership as well. It could be your own thoughts, it could be those around you, or what you see, or what you think you see around you that's holding you back.
Yeah.
And so it's just noise. It's not the truth. It's just something that's there. So, for example, a lot of it, like when I decided to do this, so one of the things that was really helpful for me is I created I took this from somebody else, but an emotional board of directors.
Hmm.
So I got people around me that were my um, kind of like my cheerleaders, but they kept me grounded.
Hmm.
So it was the ones that could make sure that I could see that, yeah, if you want to start a business, of course you can do that. You've got the wherewithal to do that. But at the same time, if I had some like crazy idea, like something that was beyond my where I was at that moment, we're really good about pulling me, keeping me grounded to say, that's a great idea, but let's start with this, right?
Right.
That's great. You want to go do whatever. Maybe you want to write a million books or whatever it is. Maybe just start with the first one, right? Kind of
Yeah.
just help keep that goal within that space. And I have some great friends that I would go walking with that were not on my emotional board of directors, because whenever I'd bring up something, some idea I was thinking about, it would automatically kind of talk about all the ways that it could go sideways.
Yeah. The negative
So kept
stuff.
so the
Yeah.
negative or the realistic, the realism, as they like to say.
Yeah.
So, you know, had those people that really were my cheerleaders on board, and my mom being one of them. My dad, on the other hand, is not on there.
Hmm.
And when I asked my mom, hey, what do you think of us? She's like, oh my gosh, you'd be so good as a business owner. And not only that, but what you're looking at with coaching fits in so well with what you do, like your
Yeah.
background and personality and all of that. You're going to be so great at that. My dad, no, I don't think you should do that. So then I asked him a little further. So, using my coaching voice, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, why? What is it about business ownership? Why shouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
Like have have I not been successful in the past? Whatever. And he's like, oh no. He says, I don't know anybody who's ever done that in my family. You'd be the first. I don't know how to support you
Yeah.
because we don't have somebody who's done that.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of a long way of saying, right? So find those people in the corner that can help you rise above the noise, um, kind of tap into who you are and what you bring to the table. And then those people that are maybe the naysayers, what is it about that?
Hmm.
Why are they thinking that way? It could be something as innocuous as, I just don't know anybody who's ever done it.
Yeah.
Right? Like with my dad. It's like, I don't know how to support you because I don't have anybody in my family who's done that before.
Yeah.
Of course, I think you're going to be successful. You've been hugely successful at everything you've done. I just don't know
Yeah.
how this works.
So he's just saying he doesn't know.
So
He doesn't know
he
because he
doesn't know.
can't base it off of, right?
Yeah, he doesn't
Yeah.
know. So it had nothing to do with me. It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with my skill set, but it took asking a couple of extra questions to get to that. And when we got to that point and he could identify that and I could identify it, then it's fine, right?
Yeah.
My dad's opinion matters a lot to me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
knowing where that was coming from was really just helpful because we
Yeah.
both realized that it was a place where he just didn't know.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of people? I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there listening. Right now, people are going through difficulties with their jobs,
Yes.
with layoffs, with whatever's happening, transitions. Do you have any particular examples of people you've worked with and just how you've helped kind of dig them out of that hole and find something that's going to really fulfill them?
Yeah, and I would say some of the great successes I've had are people that maybe haven't even got into business ownership.
Yeah.
Um, so that idea of being kind of stuck where they're at, just knowing that it's not the right thing for them. I've had people who have actually like quit jobs and it's like with nothing to go to because it was
Yeah.
just so bad.
Yeah.
Um, and then the work that we did in getting them through and keeping an open mind being the number one key, like keep an open mind. And the process that we go through, we get into talking about business ownership as a way of getting to their goals, introducing them to businesses to talk more about how that all works. I've had a couple who have come back and have said, okay, I really realized that, I knew I thought business ownership wasn't for me. Having this conversation, I know it's not for me. However, the work we did, I completely rethought how and what I was open to. I
Hmm.
started taking every job interview or every job as a just curiosity. Like, I wonder what that would be like.
Yeah.
And in doing so, found themselves in a completely different business or industry than they had been before.
Yeah.
And they're much happier. And
Yeah.
likewise, right? Some of the clients that have come through and have never thought of business ownership or had that, like me, like, oh yeah, I've always thought it would be great to be my own business owner so I don't have a boss. But what would I ever do? What could I ever bring to the table?
Yeah.
And when we talk about businesses and talk about franchising, realizing that, oh, there is a way that I could be my own boss, still bring good to the world. And my family and do this. There's a lot of
Yeah.
empowerment that happens through this process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I have a client who it's just really fun. She just opened her store
Yeah.
earlier this year. I'd been working with her for quite a while, and we started off as just looking at something kind of a part-time. She knew she was looking at potentially some businesses once we started talking and getting to that space, but she wanted something part-time.
Hmm.
And then I don't know, about 9 months into the process or so, she said, forget that. Let's pretend I go full time.
Hmm.
Let's pretend that I quit the job I'm at right now. What else do you have? And she did a complete 180 in her thinking and she went all in and she's got herself a cute little kids haircut place that's open
Wow.
now.
That's great.
So
And that was something that do you think she gravitated towards that type of business just from your experience with her? You kind of came to that conclusion together that that would be the perfect situation for her?
Actually, I had shown her some very different ones, but before we were still kind of looking at part-time options, and then she came back to the table and said, I want to look at this type of model and full-time.
Wow.
And so I said, all right, let me introduce you there. Let's look at that one. We'll just start with that, see how that goes.
Hmm.
Right. And we can always add more into the mix, but
Yeah.
she didn't look back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the book Rising Above the Noise. What
Yeah.
motivated you to do this, to write this book? And tell us a little bit about what people can gain from it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had it in my head that I was always going to write a book at some point.
Yeah.
Um, but it was going to be fiction because you can make everything up.
Right.
You
Yeah.
don't have to, you can make the whole story up. You
Yeah.
can make all your characters up and everything.
Right.
And but I just kind of didn't know where. I mean, I have an idea of a story, but I wasn't quite sure where to go with that. And I came across and got introduced through some networking with a publisher in Canada and who does publishing. She does everything. Her little uh, it's Next Page Publishing, and they do coaching, writing coaching, and editing, and like everything.
Hmm.
And so I was talking with her, and as we were talking, realized that, and she's one of those that helped me rise above the noise and realize that I have things to say that were worthwhile.
Yeah.
So we morphed it into a nonfiction book. So it's really kind of an empowerment book. Specifically, it's written for women, although I've had some men come back to me and say, this is really good stuff. Um, but it is kind of geared towards that readership. And it's basically the life, kind of our trajectory through life from childhood to retirement as our older age, right? As well as the trajectory of our careers
Hmm.
and how we start with dreams. We could be anything that we
Yeah.
want. Like if you could do anything, what could and as kids we're encouraged for that. And then society and getting older comes into play
Yeah.
where society says, oh no, maybe you shouldn't play with that. Oh, you can't want, you can't play with Matchbox girls. You should play with Barbies.
Hmm.
You're a girl.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much nowadays, but certainly when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And then but then this idea that we were taught different things as we were growing up, like the fit. And so they're kind of fables of youth, right? So we start from wanting things, and everything's within reach, everything we can do, just whatever you can dream, to here are the different things then that we start to learn, the different fables of youth, as I called them, things that we were taught that we shouldn't, like, hey, I don't know about you, but hey, you don't need to brag about yourself. You don't need to really sing your accolades. You're going to be recognized for the work that you do.
Yeah.
Guess what? That doesn't work in corporate America.
Yeah.
If you sit quietly behind and just do your work and do it well, you're not going to be recognized for that. You need to be able to talk about what you do.
Yeah.
Um, so different things like that we were taught, and then moving into those of us that were fortunate enough to go off to university, then like, what is that? Like, what is your major? What does that mean? Like, how are you making money? What is your career? All of that. And then you throw kids and spouses or bills, whatever, into
Yeah.
the mix, and how that changes what's important. So even if I was taught, or if I had a mentor who at the beginning said, make sure you build in work-life balance because you need that. And then you are in a spot and you see other people get let go, you think, well, no, I've got to work so I can maintain my family and maintain my house and there's food on the table.
Yeah.
And so that shifts that happen along the way. And then how that just kind of gets into our psyche and isn't good for us. And we hit this point of what the heck?
Hmm.
What the
Yeah.
and how do we get through that? And so
Right.
the last part of that book then is, how do we get through that? How do we unlearn what we've learned? How do we learn how to dream again? Um, let go of the old baggage and move forward and learn how to soar. And yeah,
That's
take
great. I
take
mean,
ownership. Yeah, so that's pretty much what it's about.
and it's interesting you say that because I think we, I don't want to say it's education, but we put kids and young adults through this process, which kind of leads them along the go to college, get married, get a job, and that's the
Yeah,
path, right?
that's the
And
path. Yeah,
it's been drilled in everybody
drilled into us.
since they were elementary school
Yeah,
kids. And
yep,
so now we're trying to reframe that. And I think schools aren't really encouraging entrepreneurship. So people like you and people like me who have passion for
yeah.
it need to get the word out and show people that you don't have to follow that path.
You don't have to follow that path. That's
Yeah.
not the path for everybody. And
Right.
right, like, and like as my dad, like what he was, what he, what kind of what he was taught. That's what he
Yeah.
taught me. Right. We go to school,
Yeah.
we go to college, we get married, we have kids, we build a career,
Yeah.
and we stay there until you retire.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works anymore. So why not? Why not start earlier in that entrepreneurship as well?
Right. This has been
Yeah.
really
So
good. Yeah, thank you, Kim. I want to ask you, how can people get in touch with you if they have more questions, they want to learn more? Where can they get the book?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So
can they get a signed
awesome.
copy? All that stuff. Tell it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can get a signed copy if you want. Just shoot me an email because right now I don't have a spot for it.
Okay.
Um, but otherwise it's on Amazon, or I do have drkgillette.com is my website.
Okay.
So it's drkgillette.com. If you go there, there'll be links and information on how you can reach out to me, and contact through my social media pages as well as emails.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
yeah,
This has been great. And I'm
this
glad
has
we're
been
working
great,
together.
Ryan. I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed talking with you,
Yeah. Yeah. And if
and I
anybody's
hope it's
listening is,
useful for the leaders.
yeah, I mean, if anybody out there's listening and you are at that point, I mean, now is a great time, a new year, a new beginning. Really, it's a good time to look at
Mhm,
all the opportunities out there. Reach out to Kim. She can definitely help you.
definitely.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, this is Ryan with the Business Stories Podcast. And if you're a franchisor, franchise consultant, broker, or just a small business owner, you've got to check out clienttether.com. It's an amazing sales automation tool that is revolutionizing the industry. If you want to learn more, go to clienttether.com and inquire within.